Full circle is really about holistic wellness. Wellness actually means that when you are spiritually, physically, mentally, as a whole, fit, mind, body, soul, things happen in our lives and we have to take care of that. We have to address that. Trauma is not what happens to you. Trauma is what happens inside of you as a result of what's happened. Pranic healing or energy healing is all about one thing, and that is forgiveness. Or letting go is really about that you make sure that that boundary is not breached. People with whom I've had the most problems, they became my biggest supporters either at work or in life, just because I forced myself to send blessings. To answer your question, what is letting go? This is letting go. That you let things be and you still give your best. The picture I got of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with my teacher was Ar-Rahman. That's the first introduction. Sufism is not about ignoring the rituals. The rituals are important because on a spiritual level, they cleanse us. They make us stronger. They actually build us. They heal us. It's a blessing to have a busy schedule, right? Because if you're doing absolutely nothing all day, then really you become the workshop for Shaitan. Breathe, pause, let things be. And breathing actually helps you bring your attention to where you are. Problem is, we live either in the past or in the future. And when you are 100% in the present, that is when you actually manifest things also. Basically, whatever you think about, you attract that. When you're grateful for little things, the message you're sending your subconscious mind is, I have enough. I'm always fulfilled. I am abundant. And when you start living that frequency, that is when you attract more. Language is what really brings you together. Sadly, in our part of the world, we've just lost our identity. We've actually forgotten who we are. We don't even know who we want to be. In our religion also used to say that you want to understand God, you want His marfat, right? You cannot have His marfat if you don't know your own self. What was the first revelation about? And the qalam. There is a power in the pen which we are not aware of. There is a power in the pen. It reprograms your mind and your subconscious. Now, do you realize how deprived the generations now are because they don't know how to write?
When we come to the concept of your organization, what is the concept behind? And can you just briefly name your organization for our viewers as well, who just want to reach out for, therapy and healing and everything?
So, Full Circle is in a summary really about holistic wellness, the concept of holistic wellness. And why did I start that? Because at some point in my life, while I was studying and practicing energy healing, I realized that when we look at wellness, we have to look at it holistically. You cannot say that, somebody, if he's physically fit and does not have an ailment. And by the way, this is also the definition by, the definition of wellness, which is given by WHO, World Health Organization. They also say that wellness does not mean the absence of ailment or illness. Wellness actually means that when you are spiritually, physically, mentally, as a whole, you're fit, or you're well. That's the concept of wellness. And when I was studying energy healing, I also realized that you cannot separate the three, mind, body, soul. They only when they are in coherence is that you can achieve wellness properly, because each one impacts the other two. If your mindset is not right, mentally you're not well, it will affect your energy levels, it will affect you physically. When you're physically not well, it affects you emotionally and mentally. And if your emotional body or your energy body is not well, it's going to affect you either physically or it's going to affect you mentally as well. So that's the concept of full circle. You only come full circle when you work on all three. You need to imagine it like three spheres, which are kind of part of each other. So if you remember, we used to make a like a Venn diagram in maths. right? Where you would make three circles and they were overlapping, but that's
Mhm.
two dimensional. If you were to imagine those circles, three dimensional, right? And then
Okay.
also understand that when you go into the concept of healing, right?
Mhm.
Healing happens in circles. It happens in cycles, if you understand what I mean.
Yeah, that is an interesting concept because many of the time when we are looking at the people, right, they are just concentrating on their physical appearance most of the time, not their mental wellness, I would say, or not their spiritual wellness. But when we look at that kind of healing, people do have that kind of misconcept that, it is going to be some kind of voodoo type of thing. And it's going to be some kind of like, rituals or something like that. But, earlier when we were talking before the podcast, right? We were talking about many things and you were telling me, okay, there are certain exercises for it. There are certain kind of patterns for it. And, we were talking more about manifestation. So I just like to, shed a light on that as well, that, what are the processes of healing? It starts from within or, the surrounding around us.
Bilal, this is a very versatile topic because healing, again, understand, healing is not happening at one level.
Okay.
Healing is happening at a physical level, at an emotional level, at a mental level, right? So I will give you an example of um, Hori Mascara. He's a therapist, right?
Hmm.
Counselor. And he always gives, I loved how he explained the analogy he gave to explain the concept of trauma, for example, right? So let's say you have guests who come over to your house. And I usually give this example to explain trauma and the impact of it to a layman.
Okay.
Um, right? And I hope that answers your question also. So let's say you have guests who come over to your house and there is a 2-year-old or a 3-year-old kid and he spills some paint or tomato ketchup on your beautiful white rug, right? You're not going to take a stick and run after that boy. Your first instant reaction, reflex action will be to clean your carpet because it's an expensive piece, right? So you will clean it and you will clean it to the point where it has absolutely no marks, no stains left. It's as good as new. Only then you will be satisfied, right? Your guests leave, they apologize, you accept the apology, right? But you know that it's just a 2-year boy and things like this happen, right? What's important is not the boy. What's important is that you save your carpet. Gone. A few days later, you come into your living room and you see, oh, there are some stains on the sofa which you had not noticed.
Hmm.
What do? You clean that up. You don't pick up the phone and call your guests and say, your boy, he not only spoiled my carpet, he also spoiled. You don't do that.
Yeah.
So you clean your sofa. A few weeks later, when you're deep cleaning, you notice that behind the curtains, there are stains on the curtains as well as the windowsill. What do? You clean it up. Now, you saw that a few weeks or months later, only when you were deep cleaning, right?
Yep.
That's when it came to light. But you still clean it up, right?
Hmm.
Few years later, you have your own boy. He crawls under the beautiful coffee table and he shouts, Daddy, there is this red paint or something under the table. And that's when you realize, oh, it's there as well. So that accident, which happened a few years ago, has left its mark in many places. Now, what do? Do you actually go after that boy who's probably a grown up now? No, you don't. You clean that table. Why? Although the stains are at a place where nobody will notice,
Agreed.
but you still clean it up. Why? Because you're going to pass that table on to your child. And that is how traumas are. Things happen in our lives, right? And we have to take care of that. We have to address that issue if it's left a mark. Gabor Mate, he's an expert on trauma healing.
Okay.
He's written many books. And he says trauma is not what happens to you. Trauma is what happens inside of you as a result of what's happened, which means if it's left a mark, you've got to address that. Otherwise, if you don't heal, you're going to pass that on to your children. And I've been reading this research which has just recently come up that children inherit stress and anxiety from their fathers in genes. So a father's anxiety and stress is passed down through the DNA to the children. Now,
Wow.
what does that mean? That means whatever triggered it, if you don't heal from it, your children are going to be healing from it or will carry that forward, which will have physical impact as well, not just emotional on your spiritual body, right? So now understand that as we go through life, things happen. If they are not addressed at that time, they accumulate and then they are stored in the memory of our muscles,
Okay.
right? And that is how trauma gets stored in the body. So you must have heard that, stress will trigger spondylitis or somebody who has a back problem, anger issues, and all of that actually translates in some form or the other physically in some way or the other. I'll give you an example. I was reading this very interesting account by a healer uh, who spoke about one of his clients, right? And he said, this woman, she came to me and her body was very sick. She had back issues and she had a lot of problems. So he started giving her energy, right?
Sure.
And during energy healing, he realized that the right side of her body, there was something not right. It was very stiff. It was not even absorbing energy. And he asked her, did something happen? And now the problem was she had a spinal issue,
Okay.
right? So she had the spinal issue, which he was treating. But he noticed while he was giving her healing that there was the right side of her body was very tight. It was not absorbing the energy. And so he asked her, he says, did something happen to your right side? She said, no. He said, did you have an accident? She said, no. He asked her a few questions. Then he went back into her life, what kind of a life she had, talked about it. And then she said, you know what? Now that you're asking, I just remembered that my boyfriend that I broke up with once, right? My very first boyfriend that I broke up with, he was very abusive, right? And when he realized that I'm breaking up with him, he stormed to my house, right? And he was very violent in his appearance and in his manner. So she said, I shut the door. And while I was trying to shut the door, he put his foot in so he wouldn't let me shut the door, right? So she said that my right shoulder was exposed to the outside and he was very abusive. He just abused me and, swore at me and shouted and screamed till I was able to shut the door, right? And he said, that's the problem. The shock of it, the abuse that she absorbed, it was the right side of her body that had absorbed the abuse.
Mhm.
And that had actually affected her spinal cord in the long run,
Okay.
right?
Interesting.
So now, and you'll hear of many instances like this where something which has emotionally triggered somebody or emotionally affected somebody, and it actually manifests in some sort of a physical problem.
Hmm. So, okay. So the physical trauma is there. Okay. Now comes the question. What about how much the whole wellness thing is related and the letting go part, I would highlight it, how much that is important.
So everything is related to letting go.
How?
And I I'll give you I'll tell you when I first my when I did the certification for energy healing, pranic healing, right? And it's a 16-hour certification program, which we do in 2 days, right? The level one I'm talking about. And when we sat down, uh, our coach said to us, I just want to let you know before we begin that pranic healing or energy healing is all about one thing, and that is forgiveness. And I thought to myself, how boring. I've come here to study 16 hours to learn that, okay, forgive people because that we study in the Quran in any case. So why have I come here? I was thinking I'm going to learn some new rituals or something, different, something to do with chakras. And so I was like, how disappointing, right? That's what I said. By the time we finished 16 hours, um, I had one question because so in energy healing, it's very important to understand all of us. We have energy centers in our body which regulate they regulate the body and they have different functions. Um, and just like in a physical body, you have organs which have different functions,
Mhm.
and the organs are supplied blood in order to function through a network of capillary. Same ways, your energy centers, they have what you call meridians. They are the energy lines, right? Or the vein, they're like the veins, understand, through which the energy passes, right? And then all of us, as a result of that, we have an energy field around us, like an electromagnetic field, right? Which translates into an aura. So, you must have heard, oh, such and such person has an aura,
Yeah.
right? So, somebody when they have a lot of positive physical presence, which
Mm.
you can feel from a distance, right? Basically, that's the energy.
Okay.
So, one thing which I realized at the end was that it's for us to protect our energy field, right? Whatever messes up our systems, it's because in our energy field, something comes to pollute it or to mess it up. So, for example, if you are at odds with somebody, you've had a fight or something or an argument and it's left a bad taste in your mouth, or not a bad taste really, it's just left you messed up in the head,
You can
right?
say bitterness.
Bitterness, and it depends, generally when a husband and a wife, they have a fight. So the first few hours after that, they're very bitter, right?
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of talk going on in the head,
Yeah.
negative talk. So unless you make up, right? Now
Yeah.
that period, you know when the fight happens or something bad happens, whatever comes in that energy field, right? If you can stop that and not let that into your energy field,
Mm.
uh, that is where you actually protect yourself.
Okay.
So forgiveness is really about, or letting go is really about, that you make sure that that boundary is not breached. And how do you do that? I asked my coach, I said, how do you do that? How do you keep somebody's energy out of your energy field? Because we're humans at the end of the day, right? So he said, just send blessings. Now, two very interesting things. A, it's not easy
Yep.
when you're angry, when you're heated up, to send blessings, right? B, what clicked to me was that, our Islamic ideology teaches us the same thing, to remove what's evil through good, right? There's a concept of khair that you should carry khair with you for everybody,
Agreed.
right? So you'll see that in saints that, it doesn't matter. A sinner comes to them or, somebody who's killed 1,000 people. But when they step into their uh, khanka, right?
Yeah.
They don't judge. They still give khair,
Yes.
right? And that's where I realized that that is energy healing. So I tried that with a few people who were really messing up my head, right? And it was very difficult to say blessings. It wasn't easy, but I noticed miraculous results. I noticed that, the people with whom I've had the most problems, they became my biggest supporters either at work or in life, just because I forced myself to send blessings. So, to answer your question, what is letting go? This is letting go. That you let things be and you still give your best.
But that is the difference that we come along onto, right? That number one, most of the people that are Islamic scholars I'm talking about nowadays, they don't talk about the matter of khair. They talk about, okay, Allah is like is going to punish you on the factor, like if you're doing the sin, and if the person is doing that kind of thing, you should do certain actions. There is some kind of leverage that you have, or certain things like that. But they are not teaching us about letting go, sending the blessings. Like that is sunnah as well, most of the time. And like I have numerous of stories about the prophet that he is letting go in Taif when he was being stoned, and when the kids when used to bother him, or the women who used to throw the garbage on the prophet, and in that sense he is letting go, right? And most of the time you don't understand, okay, that was the concept that was there, but now if we look at it, why all the people who believe in Islam are so much frustrated? And most of the people are like that. I don't know that.
Bilal, the sad part is I feel that, especially when it comes to religion, right?
Hmm.
We've got two extremes. We've got one extreme that wants to stick to the rituals and the fundamentals. And so they focus on that and less on the essence. And then you have the other extreme, which under the name of Sufism, right? They'll give a statement and say that, God said he will forgive his own rights, but it's more important to focus on the humankind. Be good to human, be good to people, be kind to people, right? Uh, no, there is no this or that. They're both equally important,
I agree.
right? They're both equally important. And uh, sadly, because we don't study the source.
Agree.
So, when I studied the Quran with my teacher, and I was very fortunate that I got to study it in Arabic, literally word by word, where you break each word into its root. And so then you understand the essence of every word, right? And then there were supporting subjects like, the grammar, ulumul hadith, ulumul Quran, and, other comparative religions to basically, so that you have a comprehensive understanding. Now, the picture I got of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with my teacher was Ar-Rahman. That's the first introduction. So the fact, what you're saying that, if you don't do this, you'll be punished. And that's how we start bringing our children up. We give a very scary picture. And that is where, because, for generations we've been doing that, that has basically become part of our masses also, or the introduction. So there is more focus on the rituals, right? And then you have this other extreme who want to follow Sufism, but they don't know anything about the Sufis. So if you read the khutbas of Abdul Qadir Jilani, for example, right?
Oh,
When I read them the first time, it gave me goosebumps because yes, there is love of people, there is love of mankind, but there is no compromise on the rights of Allah Subhanahu wa Taala. There is no compromise on. Uh, you're supposed to be. You strip yourself of all pretense when you go in front of Allah. Um, and you realize no, Sufism is not about ignoring the rituals. The rituals are important because, on a spiritual level, they cleanse us, they make us stronger, they actually build us, they heal us. And when I did, after I finished my pranic healing, that is when I realized how beautiful the Quran is, because
Oh,
it is healing. It's purely healing. Every single thing, starting from, in Surah Hujurat, Allah Ta'ala says, think well, keep a good guman or zan of the other, because that is where it starts. Your own energy is
that's
affected
right.
by your own guman. You understand?
Agreed.
So everything is healing. Everything is about keeping our energy in its purest form constantly. When you talk about the concept of wuzu or ghusl, right? It's cleansing. And so today in energy healing, they'll tell you that, sometimes the best thing you can do to cleanse yourself is just stand under the shower and just be present. Think about nothing, but just focus on the water cleansing you from head to toe,
But
right?
over here, there is one more question that I have that, your mind is like a machine. You cannot stop it, and it's constantly running, and running towards the direction that are negative. So what you gonna do on that?
You train yourself,
Mm,
because it's very important to, it's a blessing to have a busy schedule, right? Because if you're doing absolutely nothing all day, then really you become the workshop for shaitan. That's
yeah,
how I believe. But at the same time, it's also a blessing to have some time to yourself where you do absolutely nothing and you focus on what is right now, which you call being mindful, right? Or being present. Now, sadly, the reason why we're preoccupied constantly is also because of how we have become as a human race, right? Um, for example, when I was a kid, we didn't have TVs. We had this, morning transmission for about half an hour, 40 minutes,
yeah.
right? In which we used to get this 5 minutes cartoon. And then we used to quickly watch it, finish our breakfast, watch 5 minutes of that, whatever cartoon played, and then we'd go to school, right? Then there was no TV after that. And then, the transmission started sometimes in the evening, late evening. Then what happened? Then came NTM. I don't know if you remember that or not.
I remember
So
STN, not NT.
that's the thing. So, STN and then NTM started. So what happened? They they moved the transmission. Now the TV started a little earlier. Instead of 5 or 6 o'clock in the evening, it started 4 o'clock or 3 o'clock, something like that. Then came dish antennas in 90s in
Yeah,
Pakistan. So you had Star Plus and all these programs. Now imagine what is happening. Our brains, our minds are constantly being bombarded by information. Something or the other, images, information, whether it's documentaries, whether it's shows or whatever. And then came the internet, then came the social media, right? Our brain doesn't get rest. We don't get that time anymore. So as kids, when we were bored, we had to figure out what we want to do. We'd sometimes lie around, look at the clouds, and we'd say, "Oh, look, that's a lion in the cloud. That's a,"
yeah.
right. So what does it do? It stirs your imagination,
Mm.
right? Now we don't have that spark. Now what do parents do? And I have so many cousins and friends. They have their children's entire week sorted out. Today is piano, tomorrow is martial arts, then there is swimming, then there is this, then there is a play date. Play date with who? With the same friends that they meet in school every day. Why? The kids have to be kept busy and entertained. Why? So, what do? We've got to learn to step back, breathe, pause, let things be. So, that doesn't mean that you have to meditate every day, 2 hours a day. You can take 5 minutes, 10 minutes every day, pause, breathe. And breathing actually helps you bring your attention to where you are, right? So you don't talk about, the problem is, Bilal, we live either in the past or in the future,
Oh, drastic topic. I would say that drastic.
right?
Yeah.
And so if you can learn to live in the present, and when you are 100% in the present, that is when you actually manifest things also.
Oh, we would come to this topic more. What about manifestation? Because
Yeah.
we were earlier talking about manifestation.
So, manifestation is really law of attraction, manifestation. That's really uh, the craze, the topic right now,
Oh yeah. No, it has
right?
been the topic for last 12 years, I think.
Yeah, you're right. Actually, it has been the topic for last 2 decades, I would say. More actually after The Secret came out,
Yeah,
the
this is
document in the book. But I think not many people understood that law of attraction has to do with your vibration and not just thought. It's the vibration that you carry with yourself.
what do you mean by
Um, so again, it comes back to your energy. So the easy way to explain it would be, okay, we're all made of matter,
right?
right? Matter vibrates, right? Everything is vibrating. Everything, because it's made up of atoms. Atoms vibrate. So we also vibrate. Every cell in our body is constantly vibrating. And that is what basically is vibration. What affects your vibration is your emotions.
Mm.
So some emotions take your vibration high, some emotions bring your vibration down. And as a result, what happens is, it depends what vibration, or with what frequency you're vibrating, then you're basically going to manifest it.
So well, let's just put it that way. If I want to manifest something really good, like, people, from your understanding and your perspective, now I'm realizing that 98 or 99% of the people are doing the manifestation wrong.
Yeah, because people think, and this is what The Secret did, right? When the book came out, it said basically whatever you think about, you attract that, right? Uh, yes, whatever you're thinking about subconsciously, that's what you attract, because that is what sets your vibration. So, somebody who's trying to manifest money, right? Because let's say somebody who has a huge debt to pay off, and what they're thinking about, I want money, I want money, I want money, I want money because I want to pay off my debt. But when you say pay off my debt, you're coming from a place of lack. So in your subconscious, you still don't have enough money. You're not living that vibration of I have enough. When you truly become I have enough, that vibration, that's when you start attracting money in. And that is why, when you are vibrating the frequency of abundance, that's when you attract more abundance. So, guess what gives you that frequency of abundance? Gratitude.
Gratitude.
Because when you start doing shukr every day, when you're grateful for little things, the message you're sending your subconscious mind is, I have enough. I'm always fulfilled. I am abundant. And when you start living that frequency, that is when you attract more.
That is, I saw it on a reel. There is Quranic translation, right? The old Quranic translation, from, let's just say, from the radio that used to come. Now they are in reels. So there was an ayat I was listening to, and when are you going to be thankful? We are going to give you more. And if you are not thankful, Allah is carefree. He doesn't need you.
Absolutely. And so, when again, like I said to you, Bilal, when I did energy healing and when I did the certification, right, for Pranic Healing, I was amazed. I said, but this is all what we have been brought up with in Islam. Blessings. The more grateful you are, the more blessings it brings.
And when you realize that, it's very weird because our parents were just, reading about it and they're not understanding at one point, right? That, the attraction and Allah, what He has made. Like in The Secret or in the Law of Attraction has been said, like, it's been there in all the religions. They are not lying on that. But our parents didn't understand that because they were coming from a background, number A, like, A, trauma, number two, lackness, and number three, not complete understanding how these things work. And
Yeah.
when you look at that, I feel like, okay, it's not too much late to, put the thing, checking out the box, or, put the things into their boxes right now, but it's the time I think you develop your understanding and transfer it to your kids now. Most
Yeah,
of the
absolutely. Absolutely. One of the conscious choices I made in life was, like we were just talking about, uh, how we're constantly preoccupied, and our minds are bombarded with so much information that we can't find that room to free our minds and just be present. So one of the conscious decisions I made was to move to Hunza. And I don't know for how long I'm there. I don't. Maybe it might just become second home. But it was because my girls were at a stage where I said, I can't give them exactly the kind of childhood I had, and I don't want to, because now they're made for different times and they're going to have different challenges, right? So they can taste their nature while living with nature.
because I think the world is so much screwed up nowadays that it doesn't care about your emotions. It doesn't care about, like, what kind of heart you have, but it cares about more like the materialistic thing. And I'm being really honest right now. What kind of car you drive is going to, be a laying brick that what kind of respect or what kind of excesses that you can deserve in the society, number one. And number two, like what kind of, attire you have, or what kind of, I would say, mobile that you're using is going to decide that what kind of respect the other person is going to give you. And that is too much toxic in its own manner. And when you
Yeah.
talk, and when you talk about uh, these kind of things, most of the part of the society is not paying attention to that. And maybe that's why we have more depression. That's why we have more trauma. Because whatever I see, I'm gonna give you a very good example. Like when I was living abroad, I see many good kids get screwed up because of the peer pressure and they wanted to, get accepted by the other people. Many good girls, they, turn around 360 of their personality, really innocent, really pure, and then boom, they are addict and they are in bars. Similarly with the guys, good students, great athletes, just wanted to be accepted because, their parents never accepted them, right? So, boom, alcoholics, dropouts. And that is, I think, creates that kind of scar that, normal people cannot get recovered from it, but many people do. Like, there is a percentage of, I would say, 5%. And maybe, it's the hunger, like, of lust, of, like, getting more rich or getting more powerful. And it does so much damage to a person that they are not recoverable. And I think that is creating more trauma, more pressure in our society to, destroy ourselves in our own way. And then you cannot recover from that. And if we can recover that, is that possible from wellness, like, through your workshops and that you're doing? Because, one of my closest people was going through that.
Bilal, I feel there should be some people in the society, if they have a voice,
They should raise
they
it up.
should they need to let that voice be. um, like I'm There are certain things about which I'm very outspoken. And to me, it makes no difference whether somebody likes it or not. I'll still, and then they can be taboo subjects, and okay, if they are, they are. Um, I think also maybe I've just become a lot more brave in after healing, pranic healing, because you're able to see very clearly this is yours. You keep your shit with you, and
Yeah,
this is mine, right? And I'm not going to let that enter my energy field. And so you become very selective also about the kind of people you bond with or you share your energy and space with. And then I think it's also a 40s syndrome, because
yeah,
most people, once they enter their 40s, right,
yeah.
they're done with the bullshit, right? They've seen it, most of it, they've seen most of all, seen it all, done it all. And so they don't have that pretense, right? Um, and it makes it very easy for us to be then outspoken, right? So I choose to speak about things where I feel that, as a society, our fabric is just so torn now, right? Uh, Take Turkey, for example.
Hmm.
In Turkey, you have one language that is spoken throughout, right? The nation is very proud of who they are or who they have always been. They're not followers.
They're not followers at all.
They're not followers, right? They may have difference of opinion about, this party and that political party, but as a nation, they're all facing one direction, right? They may have religious differences also because you've got a very big secular lot and then you've got another. But as a nation, right, they're very proud of who they are,
Agreed.
right? That's probably because they all speak one language. Language is what really brings you together.
I
And, right, sadly, in our part of the world, you have many languages. There is a very heavy influence of, because of our history, shared history with India, there's a heavy influence, right, of that culture as well. And then that culture has been glorified so much, in the past 30, 40 years through, the kind of media that we're exposed to, dramas and magazines. And of course, then there are political forces also, we've just lost our identity. We've actually forgotten who we are. We don't even know who we want to be.
First of all, I think all of like that Indian influence kind of on the subcontinent and everything. I think there is nothing to be proud of. Nothing. We don't have a good history of anything except for the people who are doing good in the sense that like Guru Nanak was there. Like let's just say Abdullah Shah was there, and things like Sufis and sons, and I would say saints like that. Apart from these people, there's nothing to be proud of. We were just killing each other onto the name of that. And when, like, some of the people, when I look at the media or when I look at the broadcasters of India, they say that, oh, we are one nation. Okay, I said, good, you are good, one nation. But in North, you will kill someone that he would talk about beef. But in South, you would go drink tari and you have to have beef with that. Otherwise, you are not a good South Indian. I said, what kind of, bystander is that? And simple as that, like, when people are talking about, though, they have rich, I would say, books that, guide a person to their life. Like, I am a really big fan. I used to read a lot about Bhagavad Gita because my uncle, my late uncle, his name was Iqbal, and he showed me the first thing that I ever saw on a dish TV. That was Mahabharata, right? And when he passed away, when we used to talk a lot about it, and when he passed away, and I was reading about it, I was like, okay, that person showed me that thing. I get into comparative religion, and then I realized that about the ayat that a verse from Quran that we have sent messengers to all of the earth, to all of the societies. And even when you ask about it to Dr. Israr or Dr. Zakir Naik or big religious scholars about it, they cannot be sure if they were. They say that maybe they were, you know, Ram, Krishna, or you say like Parshuram. They were, and Gautam Buddha as well. About I remember Dr. Sar's lecture about him, that maybe he was a prophet. You never know,
Mm.
but you cannot be certain about it, because in Surah Maida, and there was one surah, may God forgive me for misquoting that, but I remember the ayat and the verse, like we have discussed some of the messengers with you, and we have not discussed the most of them,
Mm. Mm. Absolutely.
right?
Absolutely.
So now we come to a conclusion of it, like, okay, there is your history that is related to the oneness of the path, and then is a man-made history, like right now people from different parts of India are just glorifying their history. That's it. Like if you go in Maharashtra, there is a language controversy. You go in Kerala, there is a language controversy. Now if we come to us, that okay, there should be one language, so it can represent us as a nation. When you go to an Arabic region, they all talk in Arabic. When they see their dialect, they ask you where you're from. Otherwise, they're only speaking Arabic. And the most different Arabic is like the Moroccans. There is like far way different. But coming on to the topic, we have lost everything. Like if you are in some kind of Punjabic region, and if you are spoken like a Karachi person, they would ask you, okay.
But Bilal, not just us as a nation, as a human race, we have so like I was we've degraded. I was listening to somebody today who was saying that I do not agree with, and this is somebody from the UK, right? A Western, saying that I do not endorse or encourage the kind of social media narrative you have today, that when you have these reels and these posts saying don't settle for less, if your man is not getting you a Gucci, or and you have
I
so
hate
much,
that.
but you have so much material like that which is circulating. And so basically you're changing the narrative, and you're saying that a woman's worth, she has to now define by the man who has to be financially at that position to get her luxury goods, luxury bags, luxury shoes. Why? Because she deserves it, but because she's worth it, really. So you're going to let the value or the essence of marriage be dictated by luxury goods. Do you
Okay.
understand? This is how the narrative is changing, right? And as a human race, this is not just Pakistan or India.
No, it's
This is
all over the
all
world.
over. It's
All over
all
the
over.
world. Let me tell you one like very funny incident. Uh, when I was studying, there was a guy from A part of the world. I'm not gonna mention the ethnicity, obviously. And there was a girl from B part of the world, and the guy was really financially rich. So she didn't even know that what does the guy do. The guy was not good looking, but he used to come into a Porsche, and that person used to talk to me like they know me. I'm a guy, I know everyone, how my nature is. So she asked me like, okay, do you know this guy? I said, yeah. Do you want me to introduce to him? Yeah. And the third day the girl proposed to the guy. Why? And she told me on his face, he's well settled. I'm not going to quote an exact word, but he's well settled. Simple. And when you go for the guy, they wouldn't see the character or something else, or not the qualities that they can live a life. They always go for the visualization of the beauty, or like how much the girl is kind of gold in our sense, right? Those kind of marriages never last, and that's how they would turn out to trauma. But they are giving trauma to the other person because they are switching partners every now and then, and that's
Yeah.
what kind of society we live in. And that scares me a lot. That literally scares me a lot. What kind of kid we are bringing to the world?
Yeah, and that is, that was another reason why why I started the full circle, because I said, this is this is where we come back to ourselves.
Yeah.
This is where we understand that, what God has made us, and we have certain needs physically, emotionally, mentally, and I want to build a community, which is why, we're very generous with our discounts for our workshops and all, because I really want to build that culture and that awareness. Because I can't tell you, Bilal, how powerful this knowledge is. If you can understand, and the saints in our religion also used to say that you want to understand God, you want His marfat, right?
Mm.
You cannot have His marfat if you don't know your own self. You don't have your
True.
own marfat, right?
True.
And that's what I realized. When you truly get to know yourself, and when we age, by the time we're in our 30s and then our 40s, there are so many layers, right? Uh, Layer upon layer of us having covered who we truly are. So to uncover that, or to unpeel that, bit by bit, layer by layer, it's a very painful process. Sometimes it can take years, it can take many cycles. um, it's not an easy understanding. So for me, to build that culture, or wanting to build that community, is only because I want to leave something behind for my children. That would be my legacy that I leave behind. A more saner network, at least, that will surround our children, more aware of that. Because the problem is today, we have a very superficial understanding. So on the net or on the social media, you will see everything being stamped as trauma.
Oh yeah.
I think everything is trauma based. In the organizations, one of the big challenges now is how to talk to Gen Z, or how to get them to work, right?
Yeah.
And there's this big debate about, we need to learn how to talk to them so that they can work. Because on the blink of an eye, they resign, they leave. What used to motivate us, that's not their motivation. Every second or third thing, if you tell them off for something, or you hold them accountable, they go through trauma. So
No, no, that is the thing. Accountability, responsibility is trauma in Gen Z, Gen Alpha, because they want to be in their comfort zone and they don't want to take any kind of responsibility.
and so this is what happens when you have a superficial understanding of things. That is not trauma,
Okay,
right?
let me quote one incident with a person. He is a Gen Z, and he was telling me well off, well, I would say comfortable family. He's coming from a comfortable family, and he was like that. Just said, bro, I hate my family. I was like, why? And I was drinking coffee, and I was like, why? And they were like, my dad was not around. I said, you come in a Mercedes over here. If your dad was around, you wouldn't have that. So be thankful for that. Or like, you won't understand my pain, but I was like, I don't want to understand your pain. Seriously, that is some bullshit that you're talking about. Seriously. So I said, okay, was your dad present on your birthday? He said, yes. I said, on your bigger days when you graduated? He said, yes. I said, who bought you this car? Who built up your businesses? Like, okay, some people's struggles start from a bike or a bus, and some people's struggle just start from, I would say, Mercedes or a helicopter. That is the difference between millennials and Gen Z. They don't know how to struggle. If they would struggle, they would lose it.
No, actually, also, Bilal, again, understand. I think we need to. I sympathize with the Gen Zs also, because we were brought up. I'll give you a very small example. So in my workshops, we do a lot of journaling. Most of us have forgotten how to write.
Ah, beautiful thing used to be.
And when I started journaling, so I started journaling very late. So, as a student, I remember when I was in class 9, 10, I loved creative writing. And to this day, even on my vision board, I have a picture of the cover of the book I will write, right? But I've just not been able to do that because for years I have not written. And I went back to writing when I started journaling about 3 years ago. And my God, the miracles that I have seen. And this is what people will tell you who do journaling, especially when they do journaling for um, self awareness or self development, right? There is a power in the pen. It reprograms your mind and your subconscious in a way. When I would journal, within days, I would start noticing synchronicities, uh, coincidences. Now, do you realize how deprived the generations now are because they don't know how to write because we are all typing on our keypads, right?
Yeah,
And and I realized one day what was the first revelation about
Ikra.
and the kalam.
Yeah,
And I said, oh my God, there is a power in the pen, right? Which we are not aware of. So do you really blame the generations, Gen Z, whether it's Gen Z, whether it's Gen Alpha, can you blame them? Something which has been part of the previous generations, writing with the pen. It's been taken away from us. I'll tell you, I believe that yes, this is all intentional.
yeah.
I
It's
was
it's been planned. It's been planned out.
I was reading today an opinion by somebody. Maybe World War III is already here. Who says World War III is going to be a war of weapons? It may not be a war of weapons. It will basically be taking the mindset from people. We're like zombies now, right? So basically, as a human race, look to what extent we've deteriorated, right? We've been taken over, we've been conquered already.
We've been conquered already. It's a very long topic, and we can talk about this like me and you can talk about this for like five
It's a
hours.
different it's a
It,
different discussion.
yeah. But thank you so much. We're gonna end this over here, and we would try to reconnect. And now we're gonna make the piece out of it. I told you about it already because you have already invited me to Honza. Surely, for I will come over there, and then we would have some fun. Let me just. So, guys, it's mostly about the wellness that we are talking about right now. It's not going to be something out of a miracle that you will feel, but you have to take the initiative on yourself, and you have to take the responsibility of yourself. And remember that you are your longest commitment. Thank you so much for joining us. See you next time.
That's true. Time has to come when I say, okay, now I have to let go. Yeah. The loss of someone. So you just cling on to it. And I'm not talking about days or weeks, it's like, for years. And you just like clinging on to it. That's true.
My name is Selena Jamshed, and basically, by profession, I'm an art therapist, and I have healing spaces. I conduct that. I have guide talk with boys, So multiple factors I do that, particularly coming for this session and having the healing space and all well-being. It's like correlated, because this year, like I have been doing multiple well-being sessions and healing spaces for SGBV survivors as well. And there was a point when I thought that I need healing as well. So how to connect with it, and till now it's like I am being connected to it and enjoying it. So let's see how it concludes. Yeah.
It's an ongoing process and a work, ye wala. So once you get into this holistic wellness thing, it affects all aspects of your life, or basically you just have to keep on working on it.